communities really are central to any kind of re-envisioning or reinventing or revitalizing a larger area like a city. Neighborhood life invests with the sense of place. It gives a way of thinking about how questions of people's connection to their larger region can be understood. And often some of the most interesting and innovative changes that take place in a city happen at that scale, coming from communities, community groups, projects, programs, initiatives that take place. Well, the LA River plays such a central part in the development of LA. It flowed through it, it gave life to it 150 years and earlier. In terms of the different, whether we go back to the missions, whether we go back to the period prior to the missions, and in the Anglo City, the way the river changed from kind of a source of life, a source of connection, to the point where it was seen more as a part of the danger that it represented because development was occurring inappropriately along the banks of the river rather than using the way the river in flowing through the city could become a natural part of the city's geography. It became more a place that separated, that disconnected. And it ultimately was contained, it was channelized, it was made like a water freeway. And in doing so, it became a barrier. And so that sense of water in the city being one that gave definition and life to the region became instead a place that constructed a sense of disconnect, of alienation, of distortion of how the river itself was part of the region. And as a consequence also, the water in the city, which would also provided a source of water in terms of the water that percolated into the ground, that was its dominant supply source, no longer served that function. And as the city grew, it began to look for water that could come into the city for the city. And that increasingly became an imported water source, and it helped determine the shape of the region rather than the water in the city. And water for the city increasingly became more and more distant from the city itself. The origin, area of origin from where the water came from, whether it was the Colorado River, whether it was the Sacramento River system in Northern California, really made water for the city the determinant of how the city grew. Well, the river, the change in the rivers, both in Los Angeles and a number of other cities around the country, is relatively recent. This notion that you had to contain the rivers because of the flood potential, that they no longer were an amenity, they no longer were part of the culture and the nature in the city, is really a 50-year, 60-year history. And in the last 10, 20 years, new urban river movements, urban stream renewal movements have emerged, including in Los Angeles. And that notion of, instead of seeing the river as a barrier, as a divide, to re-envision it, reconstruct it, think about its function differently as a place that could provide a gathering, a sense of place in the region, has really emerged. Some cities it's developed further than we have here in Los Angeles. The barriers for doing that in Los Angeles are greater, but yet the opportunity itself is so significant. And the LA River revitalization movement, the re-envisioning movement of the LA River, has really captured the imagination of people who are trying to think of Los Angeles and as a different kind of opportunity for environmental change, for greening the city, for making the city a place of community life rather than undermining any sense of community. And the LA River movement has grown to the point where the idea of changing the river system is now really accepted. And the question now is, how do you do it? Well, that's very important to understand. We're not going to go back to a kind of a pre-channelized river, but we can, in doing changes along the river's path, construct both recreate a sense of nature in the city, and also construct a sense of community that can be associated with the idea of river revitalization. Because river revitalization also must connect to neighborhood revitalization. And what's so significant about the LA River is that it really crosses all the pathways of what Los Angeles and Southern California is all about, in terms of its immigrant communities, in terms of its suburban communities, in terms of its urban core communities. It's all of Los Angeles, it's all of Southern California that has a place in terms of this revitalization. And instead of creating this divide, it is where we, in fact, can regather at the river's edge and have a sense of the possibility of nature and community in the city. We have an institute called the Urban and Environmental Policy Institute. We have an institute called the Urban and Environmental Policy Institute at Occidental College that has a number of different centers and programs, including an urban nature program, also one that deals with issues of food and justice and deals with immigration issues and housing issues and transportation and land use issues. And the way we've organized it, we see it as a hybrid. We see it as a place where research and education work can take place, but it's research and education work that's connected directly with communities, that's connected directly with the sense of bringing about opportunities for change. We see ourselves as a kind of a social change institute as well as a research and education institute, and we also see ourselves as one that creates opportunities in this community engagement of information, of initiative that comes from the community and helps inform the research process. So we call it action research or community-based participatory research. It's a type of approach that where you don't divorce the research from the community side of what the research is about. So we have people who also are community organizers who are on staff, who are going out and identifying the kinds of issues and needs that are associated with what the research ought to be about and how to turn the research into opportunities for transformation. And a good example of that was the program we had around the LA River. We called it the Re-envisioning the LA River program. We did it with the Friends of the Los Angeles River organization. And we had a multiplicity of approaches and programs and initiatives, some of which were ways of rethinking the river, whether from an engineering perspective, from an historical perspective, from a perspective around watershed management. But we also had opportunities for thinking about how you turn that into action. So we launched a Bike the River program that was really the first of its kind, where we got the biking community to think about the river, and the river advocates, the Re-envisioning the River advocates, to think about opportunities for creating bike paths, for creating ways in which people experience the area by and connected to the river from a perspective of a biker or a pedestrian. We did other kinds of programs around the fight that was taking place to create a park at the river's edge north of downtown, an area called the Cornfield, that ultimately became the Los Angeles State Historical Park. And we succeeded in part because part of the purpose of what our institute is about and what that program was about was to change the way people think about the idea that you can, in fact, change the river, you can and change the community's role in relation to the river. And in this particular instance, instead of creating a series of warehouses and industry along the river's edge, you would turn it into a park, into a place where communities could access both this area and the river itself. The aquarium could be an enormous resource, and already is in so many ways, in not just getting a public that thinks about and connects to the issues, the scientific basis of understanding ocean environments, and understanding the environmental questions associated with it, but also as a resource, as a way to rethink places, including the place of the ocean and the ocean environment and the life of the community. And so the aquarium has that capacity to do that in its exhibits, in its continuing work, in its ongoing education, and its partnerships.